What's up, Wanna Coffee fam? It's Kai, and we are back. We will have weekly contributions from strangers all over the world discussing various topics chosen by yours truly. And this is the first time these contributors have spoken to one another, so you are in for a real treat. Without further ado, here's Alex and Ethan with Astrology.
Hello, everyone. Welcome back. My name is Ethan. I believe today's topic is going to be regarding astrology. I've got with me here.
Alex Eggert.
Hello again, Alex. Good to have you on this chat. We had a great talk last time. I was looking forward to talking with you again.
Yeah, absolutely.
I think it's probably best I start off by saying that might not be the best subject for me to partake in because I'm not that big into astrology.
I mean, I wouldn't say I'm like super into it. Like, yeah, I'll read stuff here and there, but it's not, I don't check my daily horoscope or anything. But I have like a basic knowledge of it.
Right. I certainly know the names of all the different ones, but I find it amusing, certainly. Occasionally like entertaining. Like I just happen to read or accident myself upon like some horoscope, whatever. I'll just read it like, interesting. But it never gets past like surface level for me.
Exactly. And I was thinking about it earlier because I was like, well, I don't know that much. And I know people, especially, I feel like it's a really big pop culture thing right now. I feel like I hear more about astrology more than I ever did. Um, and I was thinking, I was like, I don't know whether I think some of it is like just coincidental and it just happens to work out that way, or if there really is something in the universe and how the stars aligned when we were born that shapes us a little bit. Because I mean, if I think about it, I'm a Leo, and Leos are bold and outgoing and assertive, center of attention. I mean, I don't really like to be the center of attention now, but at some point in my life, yeah. But a lot of those qualities that they attribute to a Leo are very much qualities that I'll just own them absolutely. Um, so I don't know if it just happens to be coincidence and that's just who I am, or if the stars really did align in August 32 years ago, and that's why I am the way I am.
It's interesting you bring up things like alignment of stars and the celestial beings and whatnot. And we talk. There's that joking. I think what a year or 2 years ago, I can't remember. Mercury retrograde, right? Just like because Mercury is slightly out of line, everything gets fucked up, and everyone is blaming Mercury. But you also brought up the interesting point of saying like you've seen it more than you ever did, or at least compared to when you were growing up, perhaps. I'd have to agree, but if only because the internet and the proliferation of like that kind of stuff, it makes it so easy to have so many different sources for these things, right? And I think like horoscopes are well within that range of like internet clickbait, right? Like,
Yeah.
It's that same mindset of like a quick, uh, eye-catching, attention-grabbing like snapshot of something, right? Potentially pertaining to you or your interest. I think like an astrological like horoscope or whatever is like a perfect example of that, like a weekly, a daily, monthly, or whatever.
Yeah. I think it's also super funny that you bring up Mercury retrograde, because the last time Mercury was in retrograde, I was having like the most horrific week and I was just in a mood, and it didn't have anything to do with hormones. But I was just awful. And to be perfectly blunt, I was being a really big fucking bitch, and I don't know why.
You
And
do know why. Mercury.
one of my friends is like, Alex, Mercury's in retrograde and it affects Leos. There's like a couple other signs that it affects more than other people. And apparently Leos in Mercury retrograde have the tendency to be more irritable and have things go wrong. And I was like, that's ridiculous. And I was like, but then I was like, well, maybe, because I didn't really have any reason. It was just like,
Right.
It was like a week, and it was just terrible. And I was like, or maybe this is just who I am now, and I'm just mean. I don't know.
It's funny you bring that up too, where you're like, well, that's just like your first reaction is to be like, oh, that's rubbish. That's hogwash. But then there's always some small sliver of you, right? Like that little tiniest voice in the back of your head that it goes, maybe. Well,
yeah.
And it's fun. It's fun to think that it could be possible to be able to like sort of point to something that is the cause of some behavior or thinking or whatever, right?
Yeah, absolutely. It's nice to blame Mercury instead of, me just being a foul person.
You bringing that up too, where it's like, do you think that in general, like the fascination with astrology is part of that, like people being able to like categorize, being able to label and frame, and by frame I mean like, in the same vein as like categorize, like being able to put a title to something. I do so and so, or say so and so, or think so and such, because fill in the blank, Leo, Sagittarius, Aries, etc., etc. Or not Aries. Aries is not. Right?
Yeah. I think that people do use that, like, oh, we're not compatible. Oh, my relationship didn't work out because whatever and whatever aren't compatible signs. Like, or this is part of my personality because I'm a Taurus, like whatever it is. I think people do. I think it, I don't hear it all that often, but I think people do use it kind of like as that like personality crutch.
Right.
Like, I'm a Gemini, I can't help it. Sorry. No. Maybe you're just rude. I don't know. Like,
I mean, but then that's just like one more of the very many things that I think people are fascinated with when it comes to like being able to sort of box or organize personality or behaviors, like introverted, extroverted, or like I think, what was it, the Myers-Briggs, right? Um, I think that it's just part of this whole game. I want to use the word game here, where it's like people really try to sort of separate or create adjectives for people, and being able to sort of like point to something. I'm because of this, because of that.
yeah. But I mean, I think there's certainly things that like have rung true too.
Yeah.
When I like just like my base, like sad little knowledge of astrology, because I don't know that much, but like as far as compatibility with people or relationships, I have now dated 2 Leos, and Leos are not supposed to date each other because it's bad. It's bad. And it was so bad. Like, and I was like, why didn't I learn my lesson the first time?
Well, I mean, so that's interesting because it's sort of like chicken and egg, right? Is it because, do you think that you dated 2 people, like, I mean, you said to yourself, so Leos have certain characteristics, like very assertive, aggressive, straightforward, direct, those sort of things.
Yeah,
But
it's too much alpha.
Do you think it's more just like two alphas? Another way to describe people, right? It's just that you've been dating alphas, like this classic definition of alphas, people who have to like be the one driving all the time, and then of course you'll be like, oh well, those descriptors work with the word Leo, so it's like, oh, Leos can't date. But it's also the same thing as like, oh, two alphas shouldn't date, or two self-assertive people, or two extremely aggressive people, or et cetera, et cetera, et cetera.
Yeah, exactly. Um, and yeah, you're absolutely right. But I think sometimes I'm like, is it really like that mere coincidence?
Mm.
That because I mean, I am assertive, but I don't know if I consider myself like a super alpha, like,
Right.
and but maybe I am. I don't know.
It's
Maybe
really
I'm.
hard to, yeah, it's really hard to sort of like discern yourself for these
Yeah,
things. Yeah.
yeah, and especially when like you see things and they just keep ringing true, you're like, huh, maybe there is something there. Or again, like you said, it's clickbait, it's coincidental. Um, it just happens to work out for me. Like that's who I am. Like I'm not entirely sure.
But it could be the case, right? I'm like, how could we actually definitively prove one way or the other? Really, I mean,
Exactly.
um, but also here's the thing too. It's like, so I think right from the beginning, you and I both immediately were thinking of, and have been speaking about like Western astrology and Western labeling. But there's the Chinese zodiac too, the lunar calendar, right? And I bring this up because I'm sure many other cultures also have their own ways of dissecting, organizing, labeling, categorizing people, right? And
Oh yeah.
and the thing is, like, they can be really different. So I'm just curious if, like, because with the Chinese zodiac, for instance, it's just by year. It's not the month that you're born; it's the year that you're born. Whereas
Yeah.
obviously the Western astrological signs are not even by exact month, by the way. They're like cut up like sections of months or periods of the year that you're born, which, by the way, I'd like to bring up to the point where, wasn't it a couple years ago or something that I read, I could be wrong, but didn't like the astrological world like make this article or announcement that was like, hey, we got the dates wrong?
Yeah, and then I think they changed their mind. So like just like
I mean, it's stuff like that that just makes me go, okay, I can't, like, I just can't, because it's like, we totally read the stars wrong. We got the dates wrong. So if you've been thinking like you're a Leo your entire life, you're the one before, the one after, because we got the dates wrong.
right. Yeah.
Yeah, that was
Um
really funny when I remember reading that.
yeah, I remember being like, I am not a Cancer. Like, no way. Like I remember like because one of my friends was like, haha, I'm still a Leo. And I'm like, me too, because I don't believe in it. Like
you
I
know,
mean,
and
I think it's interesting, but it's not something like that my world revolves around.
of course not,
Um,
of course not.
um,
It's not like saying you're a Leo all of a sudden makes you like the most badass alpha in the world, or just the most aggressive person ever. Like, you gotta lean all the way into it. Like, if your kids misbehave, and then you're like, well, mom's a Leo, so deal with it.
right. And like, but also a lot of the qualities of a Leo are just kind of like rude people qualities. Like I'm bossy and domineering. It's just kind of it's not all, if I broke down all the qualities that I'm aware of, it just
Mhm.
kind of makes me like a brat that needs to be the center of attention. And probably at one point in my life that was super true, but now I'm like old and a mom and I just stay home and mind my business. Like it's kind of
Age is the great equalizer.
yeah.
But I'm also curious, right? Because it's like it's one of those things where it's like, why do we stop right at just saying, for instance, you're a Leo or I'm a whatever, right? Why do we stop there? And why isn't further why aren't there degrees, for instance? Like you said, you bring up a subject, oh, Leos should not date other Leos because they butt heads, etc. But what if two Leos do date each other and it works because one person is just very dominant and the other is only kind of in the middle of the pack, but they're still a Leo because they're more aggressive than other people, for instance, but just, kind of like an alpha beta, if that makes any sense.
Right, yeah. Well, I don't know if I'm willing to do like a case study and date another Leo because it didn't. I probably wouldn't rule anybody out based on that, but
right. I think you're gonna have to run an experiment for posterity. Not for your happiness. It's gonna be for posterity. So the next time we do a follow-up podcast, you're like, well, how'd it go?
Probably turn out. I don't know. Maybe it wouldn't, but the last two. Well, one of the guys I'm still like super good friends with. But it was not pretty. And we did butt heads all the time. So yeah, I guess maybe if I find another Leo, we'll have to, have a follow up and just
you'll have to measure. You'll have to measure like what kind of Leo is he, like
yeah.
Yeah.
Oh man.
Yeah. Gosh, I mean, the more I think about it, the more, and here's the thing too, the whole thing about like astrology is I always go back to like, yeah, but who invented it? Like, who actually, is there any science to it, or someone just like got a telescope one day, or not even like someone from way back when just stared up at the sky and was like, this period, these next 4 weeks is gonna be that constellation of stars right there. Like I think that's probably my biggest gripe. Not that I really care, but my biggest gripe is that it can be very inconsistent because like who's making these horoscopes? You get like so many different people come up with different things to say every day or every week, every month, and there's just no consistency. There's no like, I feel like there's no rule book. Not really.
Exactly. It's just like some Cosmo editor writes them 1 month and then somebody else writes them for the New York Times or what.
Exactly.
The New York Times, but but like there's so many different authors. Are they all astrologers?
apparently and like what qualifications go into that? Like, is it because you just want to be one, so you say you are, so now you are an astrologer? But like, it's like, people say like, oh, I believe so hard, like so legitimately in astrology, like in the science, and I'm like, yeah, but like, who's your source? Like, I really need to know this. Like,
Yeah.
like
Exactly.
Because your version of astrology, it very likely is totally different from the next person in astrology, and like you two are gonna butt heads and like who's right, who's wrong, and like kind of thing.
Exactly. And oh man, I totally lost my train of thought.
I'm sorry.
No, like my brain just like buffered. It's the first week back at school, so like I'm all over the place.
Yes.
And
it'll be months before you recover. If ever.
If I ever recover. I teach high school. So
exactly.
Oh no, I was thinking like it's so like I think on Snapchat you can check your compatibility with somebody, but like you have to know like the hour they were born and like the exact time they were born. And because I went to look at it one day just to look.
Why
And
not?
I was like, well, I'm not gonna ask this person that I don't like know all that well. Like,
but most people don't even know things like that. I have no idea what time I was born,
Yeah, I have literally no idea what time I was born. I know what time my children were born. I was there. I played a really important role. But
right. Yeah, but then also like the time is like which time zone? Like, as you know what I mean? Like there's a person born in Japan at the same time as someone born in the States, but they're considered two completely different days and times, but they were born at the exact same moment on this planet, but they're different. They could be different songs or whatever, different compatibilities.
This sounds like there does need to be like a case study. Maybe I need to find a Leo in a different time zone.
You need to find a Leo in a different time zone, right? And then just make sure that he's not like top dog Leo, kind of like middle of the pack Leo, you know? A Leo who's kind of been beaten. Yeah, who's been kind of been beaten down in life already. So like he or they
won't be that bad.
Yeah, so he's you know a little bit older, so he's like, you know, doesn't care as much.
So he's used to dealing with people who are pains in the asses.
Yeah, maybe he grew up in a household of all Leo siblings, but he was the youngest one, so you know he survived, but he didn't come out unscathed, you know.
He survived the trauma as damn fire signs cause.
Yeah, exactly. But now he can't live without Leos, and he can't live with them, kind of thing.
This is going to be an interesting case study.
Yeah, we're gonna need the hypothesis. We're gonna need numbers, data. We're gonna need all of it. Maybe
somebody who's listening will be able to be like, I have somebody for you.
Hey, there you go. There you go. This is the best way to get your name out there. But actually, speaking of, we're at time now, so I'm gonna have to stop recording. But Alex, as always, super fun to chat with you, and thank you for your time. And I'll see you or everybody else another time, I suppose.
Yeah, absolutely.
All right. You have a good night.
You too. Bye.
Bye.
Thank you so much, guys. That was so awesome. I don't know about you guys, but I love astrology. I, for one, am a Pisces, and I always want to know what everyone's charts are. That's it for us, folks. Catch us next week for a brand new episode with brand new contributors. If you like what you heard, please like, share, and subscribe. You can follow us on Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram at Wanna Coffee Pod. That's Wanna Coffee Pod. I'm your host, Kai, and let's wanna coffee next week. Cheers. Oh my God, orange is not my new black.